Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. This is Derek. Just full disclosure here, I want to say this is my third attempt at recording this episode. The first two just did not feel right, did not feel like they had the right flow or anything to me. Something just felt off. And I try to do a good job with these because the authors deserve to have good work done on their good work. So hopefully this is the last attempt here and I feel satisfied with what I'm putting out for you. But today we're going to talk about this book, Without a Whisper, written by Molly Macabre. This is the sequel to Dark Bloom, which was released back in August of 2024, I believe. And Without a Whisper came out just a couple months ago. I think it was February. The sequel, she named the series the Song of Tangled Elegies. So this is book 2. Let me tell you a little bit about it here. The laughter never comforts. It only reminds them that they are not alone. Kate and Nick have found safety behind the walls of Fort Vanguard, but peace is fragile in a world crawling with the dead. Each journey beyond the gates is a fight for survival, plagued by the infected and survivors alike. When Kate is captured, Nick descends into madness. To find her, he'll carve through the wasteland, leaving pieces of his humanity behind with every kill. The dead are evolving. The living are losing themselves. And love might be the most dangerous disease of all. So I read this book first because I really like Molly's work. Second, prior to this book, I had read... what's it called? The Reapers Are the Angels, another zombie book. So I still kind of had that itch to read another zombie book. And this book, Without a Whisper, was not too long. It was just under 300 pages. So not a super big time commitment on my part, where I could get through it pretty quick. And I was also able to do some reading on an airplane and stuff during some travel. So that helped. But as far as the story itself, it picks up pretty much right after the first book, from what I remember. And for the first little bit of the book, I felt kind of like this was just a continuation of book 1. I was hoping to feel something a little bit different. You get a new book and in a series, and if it's a series like this, I expect it to be a continuation to an extent. But in the first few pages, a little bit, I felt like it was too much like the first book, but that was okay because I ended up to be very wrong on that. This book ended up very different from what I was expecting. And just like, again, since it's only 300 pages, the book had to move fairly quick to cover all the ground it needed to. It was nothing like the first book, but I've listened to my friend Jim on his podcast talk about like some different zombie books that he's read, books that I haven't read. And the one thing I remember him saying more than once is that a lot of times it isn't really the zombies that are like the main threats, or they're not like evil in a sense, right? They're just kind of doing what they're programmed to do. And that's how I felt in this book. Like, the zombies are there. Are they a threat? Yes. Are they the worst threat? I would say probably not. It's the other people that are alive, the other factions that are just horrendous, right? You really see how low people are willing to go. And as I was reading this, there was a quote from one of my favorite movies that came immediately to mind. If you know me, my favorite movie is Aliens. And there's a quote in that movie where Ripley says, "You don't see them fucking each other over for a goddamn percentage." I hope I'm right. I really think it was Ripley. It's been a little bit since I've watched that movie. But that's what's taking place here. The people are just screwing each other over. Now, Kate and Nick, their story starts out, they find this Fort Vanguard, and it's like a utopia. It's a paradise. Things are good there. The people are good. They want to rebuild, reconstruct, and just forward civilization again as much as you can in a apocalyptic zombie wasteland. But Nick and Kate need to go outside of those walls of that city to do whatever it is they need to do. And it's the Wild West out there. The people are terrible. I think some of the topics that Molly tackles in this book, pretty brave thing to do. Um, there's things that happen to Kate in the first book that that I guess aren't so much of a shock, but there's sexual violence in this book, in the first book, and in this one. But I would say where it differs here is in this book, it is against a minor, but it's not like this isn't anything that Molly's glorified or anything like that. She wasn't looking for a reaction. She's handled it about as perfectly as I think you could if you're going to try to like write something like this. It serves the story, as horrible as that is to say, but it shows how horrible these people are, that they're willing to do something like this. And there's no trigger warning in the book, so I didn't know this was coming. That's fine for me. Some people may not like that. And that if that's something that's hard for you to deal with, then I would say this book is probably not the one for you. Again, it's nothing gratuitous or anything like that, but I mean, it's more or less alluded to, and it's kind of hearing it from Kate's point of view, and it's horrible. And then along with that, like we see Kate and Nick, they both go under different transformations in this book for, different reasons. They're going through different things. But I would say the biggest thing, like I was able to connect with Nick in his story in this book. And it's kind of a spiral because, like, as the book description says, Kate gets captured, and that happens a little bit later in the book. And he really goes off the deep end because he's just a protector. Like, he's trying to protect who he loves, who he cares about. Who wouldn't do that? So I kind of feel like, in a sense, maybe I wonder if Kate kind of feeds off of that in a little bit of a way where she feels protected, right? And I don't know if she understands the situations that she puts him in, and he has to react a certain way. She might not realize that she's doing that. She could. I'm just not sure, but it was hard to watch Nick go through his transformation, but it was one I could relate to because I think for a lot of guys, it's something that like you could see yourself doing in that situation. How could you not? Like I said before, this book, it was just a little bit under 300 pages, and I said it felt kind of fast-paced at times, maybe a little bit rushed, but things did have to happen fast. And there wasn't anything like that. Faster pace wasn't anything that was a deal breaker for me, especially since I loved her two other books, and neither of those were very long either. Going on to the ending of this book, I love the ending. And again, I think it takes guts to write what she did. And she pulled it off really well. I don't think a lot of other authors would be as brave as Molly was to write this type of an ending, because it's probably not like a super popular thing to do. I don't want to give too much away, but just read the book. And speaking of like a road that maybe isn't traveled that often, it makes me think about her standalone, What Comes Before. If you've read that, there's a character in that book. I wonder if that character isn't perhaps tied to one in this story, just based off the ending. It's a pretty ambiguous ending in that sense, I think. I don't know if Molly would ever give a straight answer, yes or no, or just kind of leave it up to somebody's imagination. But I could see it, and to me, I feel like it fits, so I kind of hope that it is that. Lastly, again, I would just say I really enjoyed Molly's writing. The fast pace kept the story moving. Her descriptions are really good. It's dark. It's a zombie book, a horror book, but there is this underlying love story that's been present since the first book, where Kate is, like gaining trust in Nick and slowly learning to love him, and vice versa. Though, like with Nick, it's maybe a little bit quicker in just his role as like a protector type. Like a romance story is not typically my thing, but the way it's handled in this, it just feels very natural. And I don't think it would be the same if these two characters, Kate and Nick, were just like friends trying to survive. They need to be tied to each other like this. So it worked really well. I would give this book 4 exploding infected heads out of 5. Make sure you check out Dark Bloom first, then read Without a Whisper. and then check out her other book, What Comes Before. I'm excited to see what Molly's got next, but for now, I'll let you go. I've got another book to go read. Take care, everyone.